A mayor signed an order to remove a 200-year-old statue of the Virgin Mary from the town square. He said it was about progress, about separation of church and state, about moving forward. Within 72 hours, 5 impossible things happened that no one could explain. This is the story of the mayor who defied the Virgin Mary and the miracle that brought an entire town to its knees. But before we continue, leave a comment saying where you are watching from and what time it is there right now. I would love to see how far the miracles of the Virgin Mary are reaching. Riverside, Montana. Population 3,200, the kind of small town where everybody knows everybody, where the same families have lived for generations, where traditions are sacred and change comes slowly. The town sits along the Yellowstone River, surrounded by mountains that turn gold in the fall and white in the winter. It is beautiful, peaceful, the kind of place people dream about when they think of small-town America. In the center of Riverside is the town square, half an acre of green grass with benches, walking paths, and old oak trees that provide shade in summer. And in the very center of the square, for the past 203 years, stood a statue, the Virgin Mary, 10 feet tall, carved from white marble by Italian craftsmen in 1821. She stood on a granite pedestal with her hands extended, palms up, in a gesture of welcome and blessing. Her face was serene, beautiful, timeless. The statue had been there longer than any building in town, longer than the oldest church, longer than anyone could remember. The statue was donated by the town's founders, Catholic immigrants from Italy and Ireland, who settled the area in the early 1800s. They built the town around that statue. It was their center, their spiritual anchor. For 2 centuries, that statue witnessed everything: weddings, funerals, celebrations, protests. Children played at her feet. Couples got engaged near her. Families took photographs with her. She was not just a religious symbol. She was part of the town's identity, part of its soul. But not everyone loved the statue, and that is where our story begins. Robert Callahan became mayor of Riverside in November of 2023. He was 42 years old, sharp, ambitious, charismatic. He grew up in Riverside but left for college and spent 15 years in Seattle working in tech startups. He made money, good money, but he missed home, or at least he told people he did. So he came back. And he ran for mayor on a platform of progress, modernization, economic development, bringing Riverside into the 21st century. Robert was not religious. He was raised Catholic, went to church as a child, but he stopped believing in his 20s. He called himself a secular humanist. He believed in science, reason, progress, not superstition, not tradition, not old statues that represented outdated beliefs. During his campaign, he was careful not to mention the statue directly. He talked around it. He said the town square needed to be more inclusive, more welcoming to all faiths and no faith, more modern. People heard what they wanted to hear. Some thought he meant adding benches and better landscaping. Others suspected what he really meant. Robert won the election by 63 votes. It was close. The town was divided almost exactly down the middle. The older generation, the families who had been there for generations, mostly voted against him. The younger people, the newcomers who moved to Riverside for the scenery and affordable housing, mostly voted for him. Robert took office in January of 2024, and within 2 months, he made his move. It was a Tuesday morning in early March when Robert called a town council meeting. The agenda listed only one item: redesign of town square for improved public use and inclusivity. Nobody suspected what was coming. The meeting started at 7 in the evening. The council chamber was half full. Mostly the usual attendees, business owners, a few retirees, the local newspaper reporter. Robert stood at the podium with a presentation already loaded on the screen behind him. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Tonight, I want to talk about our town square and a proposal to make it more welcoming and inclusive for all residents. He clicked to the first slide, a photograph of the town square with the statue prominently featured. Our town square is the heart of Riverside. It should be a place where everyone feels comfortable, where everyone feels represented. But currently, the square features a large religious statue that, while historic, sends a message that may not be welcoming to all residents. You could feel the temperature in the room change. People sat up straighter. Whispers started. Robert continued, as if he did not notice. I am proposing that we relocate the statue of the Virgin Mary to a more appropriate location, such as the grounds of St. Michael's Catholic Church, and redesign the town square to be a truly neutral public space. One council member, Margaret Flynn, 78 years old, whose family helped build that statue 2 centuries ago, stood up. Mr. Mayor, are you seriously suggesting we remove the statue that has been in this town square since before this town was even officially incorporated? Robert smiled his practiced political smile. Mrs. Flynn, I understand this statue has sentimental value to many residents, but we must consider the separation of church and state. We must consider residents who are not Catholic or not religious at all. The square is public property. It should not favor one religion over another. Another council member, Tom Reeves, 62, spoke up. That statue is a historic landmark. It is part of our heritage. You cannot just remove it because it makes some people uncomfortable. Robert was ready for this. He clicked to another slide showing legal precedents. Courts across the country have ruled that religious symbols on public property violate the First Amendment. We could face a lawsuit at any time. It is better to be proactive. Besides, I am not suggesting we destroy the statue, just relocate it to church property where it belongs. The meeting erupted, people shouting, some in support, most in opposition. This is outrageous. You are erasing our history. The statue has been here for 200 years. Who is complaining about it? Nobody. This is your agenda, Mr. Mayor, not the will of the people. Robert tried to maintain control. Please, everyone, let us discuss this civilly. But there was no civil discussion. The meeting turned into chaos, people yelling over each other. Some walked out in protest. The vote was scheduled for 2 weeks later. The news spread through Riverside like wildfire. By the next morning, everyone knew. The mayor wants to remove the statue. The town divided into camps almost immediately. Those who supported Robert's decision argued about separation of church and state, about inclusivity, about moving forward. Those who opposed it argued about history, tradition, and religious freedom. Families stopped speaking to each other. Friends unfriended each other on social media. The local diner had shouting matches during breakfast. Father John O'Malley, the priest at St. Michael's Catholic Church, tried to mediate. He was 70 years old. He had been the priest in Riverside for 30 years. He knew everyone. He baptized their children. He married their kids. He buried their parents. He called a meeting at the church and invited Mayor Callahan to attend. Robert came, but he was defensive from the start. Father O'Malley spoke gently. Robert, I understand your concerns about inclusivity, but that statue means something to this community. It is not just about religion. It is about our history, our identity. Can we find a compromise? Robert shook his head. Father, with all due respect, the law is clear. Religious symbols cannot be on public property. I am trying to protect this town from a lawsuit. Father O'Malley leaned forward. Robert, nobody is suing. Nobody is complaining. The only controversy is the one you created. Why is this so important to you? Robert's jaw tightened. Because I believe in progress. I believe in moving past outdated traditions that divide us. That statue represents an old way of thinking. We need to move forward. The vote came 2 weeks later. The town council chamber was packed. Over 200 people showed up. They filled every seat. They lined the walls. They spilled out into the hallway. Security had to be called. The debate lasted 3 hours. Passionate speeches on both sides. Mrs. Flynn gave a speech that brought people to tears. My great-great-grandmother helped pay for that statue. She was an immigrant who had nothing, but she gave what she could because that statue represented hope. It represented faith. It represented community. If you remove it, you are not just removing marble and stone. You are removing our soul. Robert gave a speech about the Constitution, about the need to respect all beliefs, including non-belief, about the danger of letting one religion dominate public spaces. When the vote came, it was 4-3. The statue would be removed. The council chamber erupted again. Some people cheered, most people booed, some cried. Mrs. Flynn stood up and pointed at Robert. "You have made a terrible mistake, Mr. Mayor. You do not understand what you are doing. You do not understand what that statue means. You will regret this. Mark my words. You will regret this." Robert dismissed her warning with a wave. "Mrs. Flynn, I respect your passion, but this decision is based on law, not superstition. The removal is scheduled for next Monday at 8 in the morning." The following Saturday, a protest was organized. Over 600 people showed up at the town square. They held signs. "Defend our heritage, keep the statue. Hands off Mary." They prayed the rosary together. They sang hymns. Father O'Malley led them in prayer. He asked God to change the mayor's heart, to help him see reason, to protect the statue. The protest was peaceful, but emotional. People cried as they prayed. Robert watched from his office window. He felt a twinge of something. Doubt, maybe. But he pushed it down. He was doing the right thing. He was sure of it. This was about principle, about progress. He would not be swayed by emotion. Monday morning came, 8 in the morning. A crane and work crew arrived. So did over 300 protesters. They formed a human chain around the statue. "We will not let you take her. You will have to arrest us first." Robert had anticipated this. He called the police. Sheriff Mike Torres arrived with 6 deputies. Mike was 55. Born and raised in Riverside, he was Catholic. He loved that statue, but he was also the sheriff. He had to enforce the law. Mike approached the crowd. His voice was pained. "Folks, please, I do not want to arrest anyone, but you are interfering with a legal order. You need to clear the area." Nobody moved. Mike looked at Robert, who was standing nearby. "This is what you want? People getting arrested for protecting a statue?" Robert's face was hard. "Sheriff, do your job." Mike hesitated. Then he turned to his deputies. "Start making arrests. Only for public disturbance. Be gentle." It took 2 hours. 37 people were arrested, including Mrs. Flynn and 2 members of the town council who had voted against removal. Father O'Malley stood at the front the entire time. "I will be the last one arrested," he said quietly. "I will stay with her until the end." When the area was finally clear, the work crew moved in. They secured straps around the statue. They lifted her slowly with the crane. People watching from behind the barricades cried, some prayed, some shouted, "You are making a mistake. She is watching you. She will remember this." The statue was loaded onto a flatbed truck and driven to St. Michael's Church. It was placed temporarily in storage until a permanent location could be prepared. The town square looked empty. Wrong. A rectangular patch of dead grass where the statue had stood for 203 years. Robert stood looking at the empty space. He felt something strange, not satisfaction, not pride, something else. Unease, maybe, but he shook it off. "It is done," he said to no one in particular. "Now we can move forward." That night, strange things began. It started with the weather. At exactly midnight, a storm rolled in. Not a normal storm. This was violent. Thunder so loud it shook buildings. Lightning that struck constantly, lighting up the sky like it was daytime. Hail the size of baseballs. Wind that tore shingles off roofs and knocked down trees. The storm lasted exactly 1 hour, from midnight to 1 in the morning. Then it stopped as suddenly as it started. The silence afterward was eerie. In the morning, people emerged to assess the damage. Trees down everywhere, windows broken, cars dented from hail. But the strange thing, the thing that nobody could explain, was this. Every single tree that had fallen, every single one, had fallen pointing toward the town square, toward the empty space where the statue had stood, and the damage, it was concentrated in a perfect circle around the square. Buildings 2 blocks away were untouched, but buildings near the square were heavily damaged. Sheriff Torres stood in the square looking at the pattern. This does not make sense. Storms do not work like this. This is not natural. The mayor's office was one of the buildings with damage. 3 windows blown out, part of the roof torn off. Robert surveyed it and tried to explain it as coincidence. Just a freak storm. These things happen. But that afternoon, something else happened. The town's main water pump failed, the one that supplied water to the entire town. It was only 10 years old, well maintained, no reason to fail. But it did, completely. Engineers came to look at it. We have never seen anything like this. Every component failed at the same time, as if something just turned it all off. The pump cannot be repaired. We need a completely new system. That will take weeks to install. The town was without water. The state had to bring in emergency trucks with drinking water. People filled bathtubs and buckets from the river. Businesses started closing. Restaurants could not operate. The hospital went to emergency protocols. And Robert, for the first time, felt real fear. 2 disasters in 2 days, both immediately after the statue was removed. Coincidence? He wanted to believe it was. But doubt was creeping in. That night, Robert could not sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Around 2 in the morning he heard something. A sound, like wind but not wind, like a voice but not a voice. He got up and looked out his bedroom window. The street was empty, dark. But then he saw it, a light, blue and white, glowing in the town square. Robert's heart began to pound. He put on clothes and went outside. He walked toward the square, drawn by something he could not explain. When he reached the square, he stopped. The light was coming from the exact spot where the statue had stood. But there was nothing there, just light. Pure, bright, impossible light. And then he saw her. Not the statue, a woman, real, alive, standing in the light, dressed in white with a blue cloak. Her face was beautiful, but sad. She looked directly at Robert. He felt his legs go weak. This is not real. I am dreaming. I am hallucinating. The woman spoke. Her voice was soft, but filled the entire square. Robert Callahan, you have made a grave mistake. Robert could not breathe, could not move. Who are you? You know who I am. You removed my image from this place. You rejected the faith of your ancestors. You mocked the prayers of your people. Now you will see what happens when you turn your back on the sacred. Robert tried to speak, but no words came. The woman continued, 3 signs I have given you. The storm, the water, and now this. 3 warnings to turn back before it is too late. But you are stubborn, you are proud. So 1 more sign I will give you, and then you must choose. Will you humble yourself, or will you let pride destroy you? Robert found his voice. Destroy me? What are you talking about? The woman's expression was infinitely sad. Not just you, Robert, the whole town. Tomorrow a great danger will come. Only I can stop it. But I cannot stop it from where I am locked away in the dark. My place is here, in the square, in the light, with my people. If you do not return me by sunset tomorrow, many will die, and their blood will be on your hands. The light grew brighter until Robert had to close his eyes. When he opened them again, the woman was gone. The square was dark, empty. Robert stood there shaking. His rational mind told him he had imagined it. Stress, lack of sleep, guilt. But every cell in his body knew the truth. That had been real. That had been her. If this story is touching your heart, do something for me right now. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss the miracles that happen every day. And leave a comment telling me what you are feeling at this moment. I want to know that these stories are reaching people who need hope. Do it now before we continue. Robert did not sleep that night. At 6 in the morning he was at his office despite the damage. He called an emergency council meeting for 9. By 8:30 news had spread. Something happened last night at the square. The mayor saw something. When the council convened, Robert looked terrible, pale, exhausted, shaken. He stood at the podium but did not have his usual confidence. "I need to tell you all something. Last night I saw something in the town square. A vision. Or maybe it was real. I do not know. But she spoke to me." "Who spoke to you, Robert?" Mrs. Flynn asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. "The Virgin Mary, or something claiming to be her. She said that we have until sunset today to return the statue, or something terrible will happen to the town." The room erupted. Some people laughed. Some people gasped. Tom Reeves stood up. "Robert, are you feeling all right? Maybe you need rest. You have been under a lot of stress." Robert slammed his hand on the podium. "I know how this sounds. Believe me, I know. But after the storm, after the water pump, and now this, I do not know what to believe anymore, but I cannot ignore the warning." Mrs. Flynn spoke quietly. "Then return the statue, Robert. Return it before it is too late." Robert looked at her. His pride warred with his fear. "If I do that, I look like a fool, like I was scared into submission by a hallucination. I will lose all credibility." Mrs. Flynn's eyes were hard. "Pride, Robert. That is all you care about. Your image, your credibility, not the safety of this town, not the will of the people, just your own ego. Return the statue before we all pay for your arrogance." The meeting ended with no decision. Robert went back to his office. He stared at the phone. He could call the church. He could ask Father O'Malley to bring the statue back. It would be easy, but his pride would not let him. He convinced himself the vision was not real, just stress, exhaustion, coincidence. The storm and water pump were just bad luck. There was no danger coming. There was no deadline. At sunset, nothing would happen, and everyone would see he was right. But at 2 in the afternoon, everything changed. Sheriff Torres burst into the mayor's office. "Robert, we have a major problem. A chemical tanker truck crashed on Highway 12. The truck is leaking. The chemicals are highly toxic. And the wind is blowing directly toward Riverside. We have maybe 4 hours before the cloud reaches the town. We need to evacuate. Now." Robert felt the blood drain from his face. The warning. She said a great danger would come. This is it. How many people are in town right now? Torres checked his notes. Approximately 2,800. We can evacuate, but it will take hours, and if the wind shifts or picks up, the toxic cloud will reach us before we can get everyone out. Children, elderly, people in the hospital, they are in the most danger. Robert stood up. His hands were shaking. "We need to get the statue." Torres looked at him like he was crazy. "What?" "The statue. We need to bring it back to the square. Now, before sunset." "Robert, this is not the time for Torres. Listen to me. She warned me last night. She said if we did not return the statue by sunset, many would die. This is what she was talking about. The chemical leak. We have to bring her back. Now." Torres stared at him. "You are serious. You really believe?" Robert grabbed his jacket. "I do not know what I believe, but I know that 3 impossible things have happened since we removed that statue. And now a 4th. I am not willing to bet 2,800 lives that it is all coincidence." "Are you?" Torres hesitated. Then he grabbed his radio. "All units. We need to get to St. Michael's Church immediately. We are moving the statue." He looked at Robert. "I hope you're right about this, Mayor, because if you are wrong, we are wasting time we do not have." They drove to the church with sirens blaring. Father O'Malley met them outside. "What is happening?" Robert quickly explained. "The chemical leak, the warning, the deadline. Father, I need the statue. I need it back in the square. Right now." Father O'Malley did not say, "I told you so." He did not gloat. He just nodded. "I will get the flatbed truck ready." 20 minutes later, the statue was secured and moving through town toward the square. People saw it coming. They came out of their houses. They followed the truck. By the time it reached the square, there were over 100 people. They helped guide the statue back to its original position, back to the empty patch where it had stood for 2 centuries, back home. The crane lowered her carefully. Workers secured her to the pedestal. At exactly 5:47, 13 minutes before sunset, the statue was back in place. Robert stood looking up at her, the serene face, the extended hands. He felt something break inside him. All his pride, all his certainty, all his arrogance. It crumbled. He fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "I am sorry, I am so sorry, I was wrong. Please, please protect us. Please forgive me." The crowd around him grew silent. Many knelt as well. Father O'Malley began to pray the rosary. Others joined in, their voices united. "Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women." And then it happened. The wind changed, not gradually, instantly. In 1 second, the wind that had been blowing from the crash site toward Riverside reversed direction. It blew the toxic cloud away from the town, back toward the empty desert. Weather stations later reported it was meteorologically impossible. Wind does not just reverse like that, not without a major pressure system change. And there was no pressure change. The wind just reversed, as if someone simply turned it around. Within an hour, emergency crews at the crash site reported the leak was contained. The crisis was over. Riverside was safe. Nobody was injured. Nobody had to evacuate. The toxic cloud dissipated over empty land, far from any population. Sheriff Torres stood next to Robert, who was still on his knees. He looked up at the statue. "I have lived in this town my entire life, and I have never seen anything like what just happened. That wind does not change like that. Not naturally." Robert nodded, unable to speak. Torres continued, "She saved us, did not she? The statue, or whoever she represents. She actually saved us." News of what happened spread quickly, not just through Riverside, but throughout the state and then the country. The town that almost died from a toxic cloud, but was saved when they returned a statue of the Virgin Mary. News crews arrived. Reporters interviewed people. Scientists tried to explain the wind reversal. They had theories. None of them made sense. Meteorologists were baffled. One was quoted saying, "I have studied weather patterns for 40 years. What happened in Riverside defies every law of atmospheric physics I know. It should not have been possible." But it happened. Robert Callahan held a press conference 3 days later. He stood in the town square next to the statue. "I want to publicly apologize to the people of Riverside. I made a terrible mistake. I let my pride and my ideology blind me to what truly matters. This statue is not just a piece of marble. It represents faith, tradition, community. It represents something greater than ourselves. And when I tried to remove it, I nearly brought disaster on all of us. I was wrong, and I am sorry. From this day forward, the statue will remain here, permanently protected, honored, as it should be." The crowd that had gathered applauded. Some cried. Mrs. Flynn walked up to Robert. She was 88 years old, small, frail, but her eyes were strong. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she hugged him. "We forgive you, Robert. Now forgive yourself, and learn from this." Robert broke down. He cried in her arms like a child, all the fear, all the guilt, all the relief pouring out. When he finally composed himself, he turned to face the statue. He looked up at the serene face, and he whispered, "Thank you. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for saving us." In the weeks that followed, something changed in Riverside. The divisions that had formed began to heal. People who had stopped speaking started talking again. The town came together in a way it had not in years. Church attendance increased dramatically, not just at St. Michael's, but at all the churches in town. People wanted to connect with something greater, to express gratitude, to seek meaning. The statue became a place of pilgrimage. People from all over Montana and neighboring states came to see it. to pray, to ask for miracles. And miracles were reported. A woman with terminal cancer who prayed at the statue went into remission. Her doctors could not explain it. A man struggling with addiction prayed there and found the strength to get sober. He has been clean for 8 months now. A couple unable to have children prayed at the statue and conceived naturally 2 months later after 7 years of trying. Were these coincidences, medical mysteries, or something more? The people of Riverside believed they knew the answer. Robert Callahan changed too. He remained mayor, but he was different, humbler, more open, more willing to listen. He started attending Mass again for the first time in 20 years. He did not become a zealot. He still believed in reason and science. But he also believed in mystery now, in things that cannot be explained, in the existence of something greater. And every morning on his way to work he stopped at the statue. He stood there for a few minutes. Sometimes he prayed, sometimes he just looked at her, and every time he whispered the same words: "Thank you for the second chance." The town square was officially renamed Mary Square. In a ceremony 6 months later, a plaque was added to the statue's pedestal. It read, "This statue has stood in this place for 203 years. It was briefly removed in March 2024. It was returned that same week after the people of this town remembered what truly matters: faith, community, humility. May she stand here forever as a reminder that some things are sacred, some things cannot be replaced, and pride always comes before the fall." Robert stood at the dedication ceremony and gave a short speech. 6 months ago I thought I knew everything. I thought progress meant removing the old to make way for the new. I thought faith was superstition and tradition was just stubbornness. I was wrong. This statue taught me that some old things are old because they are true, because they matter, because they connect us to something eternal. I almost learned that lesson too late, but thanks to the grace of God and the intercession of the Virgin Mary, I got a second chance. We all did. Let us never forget what happened here. Let us never take for granted the things that truly matter. Today, if you visit Riverside, Montana, you will see the statue standing in Mary Square. Fresh flowers are always at her feet, left by visitors, by locals, by people who come to pray. The statue is no longer just marble and stone. It is a testament, a reminder, a miracle. And Robert Callahan is still mayor. He won re-election by a landslide. But he is not the same man who first took office. He has learned that leadership is not about imposing your will. It is about serving, about listening, about having the humility to admit when you are wrong, and about recognizing that some things are bigger than politics, bigger than pride, bigger than any of us. Before we finish, I want to invite you to join our prayer community for the Virgin Mary, a space of faith and hope where people from all over the world come together to pray and share the graces they have received. If you feel in your heart the desire to be part of this chain of prayer, click below and become a member of the channel today. Come pray with us, and if you made it this far to the end of this story, do one thing for me. Write in the comments, "Return the statue," the 3 words that saved an entire town from disaster. I want to see how many hearts this story truly touched. And every time I read "Return the statue" in the comments, I will know that one more person believes that the miracles of the Virgin Mary still happen. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Share this video with someone who needs to renew their hope today. May the Virgin Mary continue to bless and protect you and your family. Amen.